With the 221st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Travis Clayton, tackle, International Player Pathway, England.
Union Jack flag on his back.
Look at him.
Let me tell you, he's really interesting. I watched tape on him. Well, I watched his workout. I couldn't find tape, but I watched his workout. He was at IMG Academy in Florida where the Pathway guys go to work out. They do a great job, the Pathway guys. And I'm telling you what, I saw him and started throwing some texts out there like, hey, you guys need to take a look at this Travis Clayton guy because he was very fluid. He's a former rugby player. He was a boxer for a little while. So you've got the movement, you got the toughness, you got the independent hands with his hand strikes. Now I know he's just going through different workouts where he's pass sliding, he's moving back and forth. But Bucky, he was smooth in his sets and then redirecting his weight back. He was quick with his hands. He had like you can watch certain guys and see that they have certain abilities. He ran in the 4.8s. So I want you to pay very close attention to the International Pathway because this is going to become a bigger and look at the feet for the big man. This isn't even sped up. This is going to become a bigger and bigger deal every year, Bucky.
I can tell you, having spent some time over in London during the football seasons, they are always looking.
Look at the mirror here.
They can develop those.
With the 222nd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select Javontae Jean-Baptiste, defensive end, Notre Dame.
You know, there's nothing better than making sure that you're getting a kid when you draft him. It's got a good head on his shoulders, great pedigree. That's the case here from a Washington Commanders perspective. When you go to Bergen Catholic High School in New Jersey, only good
Oh, Bergen Catholic in Jersey.
Brian
Catholic.
Yes.
Brian
Cushing.
was a Bergen Catholic.
Yeah.
Tony the Hatchet Man Valentine. Okay, so what we're looking at, well, this is Trey Taylor. Well, no, okay, I'm getting mixed up here. So we're talking about
Baptiste.
Yeah, Javontae Jean-Baptiste, 4 years at Ohio State. Didn't really do a whole lot there. Went to Notre Dame, and it's like, ooh, this is kind of interesting at Notre Dame. He needs to get stronger, has a hard time really holding.
So I'm here to announce the pick with the 223rd pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. The mighty Las Vegas Raiders select Trey Taylor, defensive back, Air Force. Let's go, Raiders!
Trey Taylor, a lot of teams love Trey Taylor. Trey Taylor was somebody who everyone was hoping they might be able to get in the 7th round, and he's got size, he's got athleticism, and he's somebody who makes a lot of plays over there at Air Force. So you get a guy with great traits. He can start off in special teams. You want to keep bringing him along. Level of competition is about to upgrade, but he's got the physical, he's got the size and the athletic numbers that I think you really like when it comes to trying to develop into an NFL backup. That's Trey Taylor.
Thorpe Award winner, showed up at the East-West Shrine Bowl, was outstanding. Really good leader, really good intangibles. When you talk to the coaches, they talked about him being all in when it came to being able to communicate and really understand and digest the game.
The level of discipline that you have to have. Dejon Anthony from Ole Miss, safety who has decent speed. I think what you want from Anthony is you want him to prove he can make special teams right out of the gate if he's going to make a team.
With the 225th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Brendan Rice, wide receiver, USC.
Well, we're talking about the legacy. I don't know what baby goats are called, but like, you talking about Brendan Rice being the son.
Baby goat is a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
The kid. All right, so the kid.
By
the kid, Brendan Rice.
Urban Jungle, man.
Yeah,
I was born in the Bronx.
I had Mrs. Goat. I had a 3rd grade teacher named Mrs. Goats, and so we were Mrs. Goat's kids. That's the only way I know that.
Okay, Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, has an opportunity now to play this league. Plays under Jim Harbaugh in LA. We already talked about the LA Chargers investing in Lad McConkey, big-time wide receiver on the outside. Well, now you get Brendan Rice to come out there and complete the package. Physical playmaker, shows some flashes, really good player. Now he has an opportunity to earn his way onto a roster.
With the 226th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft,
the Arizona Cardinals select Jaden Davis, defensive back, Miami.
So the Arizona Cardinals now focusing in on another defensive player. Keep in mind, 12 total picks for this Arizona squad, trying to fill a lot of holes. I think there's going to be some fans that rock that uniform that cannot wait to see some of these players out on the field. But anything that pops on the tape when you guys studied?
Yeah, so I'll talk big picture about the Arizona Cardinals. I think Monty Ossenford and Jonathan Gannon have really done a good job of kind of rebooting the culture down in the desert. The players that they've taken, you talk about high-end players, guys that have come from big schools, guys who have the necessary traits, like the prototypical traits, they've done that. To listen to MJD talking about, ooh, the Cardinals are coming, just in terms of the way that they have been drafting, the players that they've talked about. We talked about the first 2 days, what they've assembled. They've just continued to put good players in the locker room, and that will give them a chance to kind of get out.
It is NFL Draft Center. Oh, the NFL Draft continues to roll on. It's Rated Rookie Recap, and it's presented by Panini America. Bucky Brooks, Lance Zierlein, who's excited and more geeked up about what's on our set than maybe some of these picks. Mike Yam with you. It has been a ton of fun. Look, day one gave us plenty of drama. Day two gave us some surprises. Day three is where we're finding some gems. We'll continue to dip into the NFL Draft and round number 7, but quarterbacks all the rage. We had to wait a really long time for the second wave of quarterbacks. Didn't have to wait very long. 6 in the first 12 picks on night number 1, an NFL record that we saw with those first 12 selections and these 6 quarterbacks that we saw. In fact, it took to pick 15 to get our first defensive player. But the big standout, I would imagine most of these guys, other than Michael Penix, probably your week 1 starters.
I mean, I'm looking at the list. Drake May could be interesting. They could start him slowly and let Jacoby Brissett. Elliott Wolf's not going to rush things.
Sure.
J.J. McCarthy, I would think, has a really good chance to start. And Bo Nix too. Bo Nix could be in a little bit of a fight there with Jarrett Stidham, where but Bo Nix played 5 years.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you guys would point out J.J. McCarthy and Drake May being the guys that potentially could start, when I would think that the experienced guys would be more in line. Like Bo Nix, I would think that he would be more in line to start in Denver. Also, not only because of his experience, but because of Sean Payton going up making him the pick over the expectations of others. I think it'd be a healthy competition between Jarrett Stidham and him. But if it's close, the tie goes to the young player.
And for weeks, months, and quite frankly, maybe even 2 years, the situation for Caleb Williams was more than likely going to be the first overall pick in this year's draft. That's exactly how it played out. Chicago getting some firepower around him as well, drafting Rome Odunze, 9th overall. But Caleb Williams, it seems like he is being set up for success with the Bears.
Well, he's got the Kyrie Williams vibes. When I say that, I mean, he's got a personality where he doesn't really care what you think. He's got a personality where he's going to do him. There's something refreshing about it, but at the same time, it's going to draw criticism. He's going to be polarizing in some regards, which we've already seen, where people want to find reasons not to like him. You don't get the sense that it bothers him at all. So we could talk about the football stuff, but let's face it, you have to be wired right to be an NFL starter and to be a really, really good NFL player. Wired right means different things for different players, but for Caleb Williams, I thought Kyle Brandt made a really good point about him on Good Morning Football. He just said he's in LA everyone knows that he's going to be the first pick for 2 years. He's had all this conversation. He's in LA, which is a really big deal with the amount of attention he gets, and yet he doesn't let things bother him. He's been in the middle of the NIL circuit forever, but he understands how to handle himself. I think that's a really big deal before we even talk about the football part.
Yeah, so you're just talking about the professionalism. That's what you're saying. But I'm saying it's the 3 Ps that really sets them up. It's the play caller, the playmakers, and the protectors that get it done. So the play caller, Shane Waldron have an opportunity to work with him. We saw what he was able to do with Geno Smith and bringing him back. Younger player, different circumstances. But the playmakers around him, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. We think about DeAndre Swift helping him out. He has the weapons around him. And then as they continue to tweak with this offensive line, he should be set up for success. The only thing about Caleb Williams that I'm worried about, the expectations are going to be through the roof for this Bears team. And we have to remember, this Bears team didn't make the playoffs last year. They have a lot of teams to jump in the NFC North to get back there. Green Bay is loaded, Detroit defending division champs, and then the Minnesota Vikings are new and improved. So this is a tough thing. They could be a better team and the record could be exactly the same with Caleb Williams playing.
DJ Moore, check. Keenan Allen, check. DeAndre Swift coming out of that backfield, double check, and then Rome Odunze. You're right. Maybe it
sounds
does
like an NFC Championship.
It does it though?
I'm putting the heat on them.
You're right. Like, God, the roster looks like it's got those pieces that are there. I made reference to it, and I said, hey, most of these guys, probably your week 1 starters, other than Michael Penix, maybe the most polarizing pick when it's all said and done. We'll look back 5 years from now and say, hey, huge swing, home run, or big swing and a miss, and what were they thinking? I go back and forth in my mind on why this makes sense, or maybe why they should have gone in another direction. Where do you guys net out?
I sat in this seat, well, actually the one Bucky's sitting in if we want to be exact about it, and I just said, what are we doing? Like, I was really troubled by that pick. They have so many needs. There's so much stuff there. And the more I've been thinking about it, I've spent time to really kind of think about what the thought process is. I've read what Terry Fontenot said, the general manager. And, you know, I kind of get it now, the more I think about it. Because if you think a player is special, you can't just pass on a guy that you think has a chance to be special. And they must believe he has a chance to be special. Drafting him with the 8th pick, he was the third quarterback off, the fourth quarterback off the board. Clearly, he's much, much higher on their board. My guess is he's at least number 2, maybe even number 1 on their board. You never know. And so I respect that. I respect the fact that they said, let's not let good be the enemy of great. Let's give ourselves a chance to have a great quarterback, even though we like Kirk Cousins, because ultimately we want to have a special quarterback for years to come. And if we think he's right there, okay, we'll sit on it for 2 years. That's fine. Maybe they didn't get there with their Michael Penix evaluation by the time they had signed Kirk Cousins. But I respect that they put it out there. They did something. Instead of just talking about it, they said, we're going to be about it.
Okay, so this reminds me of going to the dentist, right? No one wants to go to the dentist until they get a cavity. Then they want to extract the cavity because they don't want to be in the pain. Well, the Atlanta Falcons for the last couple years have not had a quarterback, and it was painful to watch that team. And so now they invest in a 35, 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
And I understand this, like people saying, well, if they were worried about the Achilles, they shouldn't have paid him. You can't allow the cost of doing business to prevent you from doing business in the draft. And this reminds me, very similar in a different way, Seattle. Seattle went out and got Matt Flynn, and they paid big money for Matt Flynn, drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. Everyone assumed that Russell Wilson was going to be a backup. They get to training camp, Russell Wilson becomes starter, they go on to win Super Bowls or whatever, and no one talks about it. So if this is a situation where Michael Penix is as good as they say he is, no one would care that they overspent for the position at Kirk Cousins and all that other stuff. But let's remember, Kirk Cousins is a good player, but Kirk Cousins ain't a great player. Kirk Cousins has 1 playoff win under his belt. So let's just make sure we're good on that. And I know that quarterbacks need to be contacted before you bring somebody else in. They call him when he's on the clock. But at some point, they've shown Kirk Cousins how much they love him by how much money they guaranteed him. He has to get over, he has to play, and then Michael Penix has to develop.
Michael Penix said they had a great conversation. That Kirk Cousins called him. And look, Kirk's a pro. I mean, and he became very likable when we saw him on the Netflix series they had with quarterbacks. I think he's a pro's pro. I think he's going to understand that part of his legacy is going to be how he works with Michael Penix, because there's been a lot of veterans. We famously, Aaron Rodgers wasn't great with Jordan Love, and that's after
sticks with him.
And then that's after Aaron Rodgers had Brett Favre, who wasn't great with him. I was in Houston as a young pup in that locker, just getting sound for the Tennessee station when Steve McNair was still in Houston before they left, and Chris Chandler was terrible with Steve McNair. Didn't even talk to him. It was famous in the locker room that he was basically on his own. Steve McNair was. So I think that's part of what Kirk Cousins realized after the sting is done. He says, you know what, this is still my team. I'm good. I've got my guaranteed money for these 3 years, and then after that, my legacy needs to be helping the other guy.
Look, for every single team, the past experiences that you have are going to dictate the decisions that you're going to make. And I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. There's that layer to the transition from Matt Ryan to where we are now. And it's been, and mostly like this, a bumpy road in a division that's gettable. It's short-term and long-term, and maybe even shorter term than people realize. 68 starting quarterbacks we saw a year ago.
Right.
Why not have a little bit of depth? I'm a Giants fan. I saw Daniel Jones go down. I saw Tyrod Taylor go down. And then I saw a lot of this with Tommy DeVito. So, at the end of the day,
it was fun for a while.
It was, but you need depth.
It happens. More likely than not, 2 quarterbacks are going to play for your team.
Yeah.
And so if you're talking about the future, because the general manager's job is not to think about just today, he's to think about out tomorrow and beyond. And so getting a young quarterback that you believe is going to be your quarterback for the next decade, there's nothing wrong with that if he plays well. Because ultimately, Michael Penix play will determine whether this was a good pick or a bad pick.
No, I'm totally with you there. J.J. McCarthy was a guest on Total Access Wednesday, day before the draft, and you could sort of feel it. He was excited. There was buzz, and yet here we go. He ends up. Joel Klatt told the story on NFL Network during the draft. He said he was at Michigan Spring Day, had a conversation with JJ, and he asked him, hey, is there a team that you like? And I'm thinking to myself, man, how many prospects have we been around? You ask them that question, they'll never give you one team. JJ did. He said, Minnesota is the team that I want to go to. He was quoted as saying, I would run through a wall for Kevin O'Connell. He's getting his wish here. This is a great fit and an opportunity to get some really good skill around him as well.
Once again, we talk about it. The play caller, man, Kevin O'Connell is one of the best. We saw him dial it up with a turnstile of quarterbacks or revolving door quarterbacks playing in. The playmakers. It doesn't get much better than having Justin Jefferson on one side, Jordan Addison on another side, TJ Hockenson, a Pro Bowl tight end, running down the middle of the field with Aaron Jones behind you. This offensive line is solid and thorough and complete. And we've seen how this team is willing to really add the pieces to the offense to make sure it's great. And J.J. McCarthy steps into a situation where he has a bridge quarterback in front of him, Sam Darnold, that can tell him, hey, man, this is hard. I've been through it. I've seen all the ups and downs. And if Sam Darnold is a willing mentor, it can be a great situation for J.J. McCarthy.
Sam Darnold was another guy who was a 3-year quarterback like J.J. McCarthy who didn't play, still had some experience to go through, came out with a lot of fanfare, went to a very tough situation. I think situation matters with quarterback more than anything else. And Bryce Young got stuck in a bad situation in Carolina, and C.J. Stroud gets stuck in not stuck. He got to land in what turned out to be a great situation in Houston. Of course, he made that great. He elevated it without question. But Bryce, I think, would have been just fine in Houston as well. Maybe not CJ's level. If you had gone to, if J.J. McCarthy had gone, in my opinion, if he had gone to the New York Giants, it's not great with that media. It's tough. New England, that's a rebuilding process. He couldn't have asked for a better fit.
There's also that personality fit as well. JJ's very likable. He's a guy that you start to root for as well. And an opportunity, once again, with good, Justin Jefferson might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Jordan Addison, also a really good wide receiver. There's pieces in place for him to have instant success. Speaking of wide receivers, there's some game changers that we saw drafted in this year's class. We'll talk through their fits coming up next on Draft Center, presented by Panini America. Home stretch of the 2024 NFL Draft. We are around number 7. The fans in Detroit, they have delivered a record in night number 1, 275,000 fans. Night 2 was actually 250,000. So they continue to roll on. There was a lot of reason for celebration for all of these guys. The wide receivers drafted in round number 1, the 7 actually ties a record. Bucky, you and I have been going back and forth. I had asked you a few weeks ago in our green room, hey, do you think we get 7 wide receivers? You hedged because you said, I don't know, man. The tackle class is so good. Well, it turns out you were wrong, but you were still right? I mean,
so
it's kind of remarkable, the talent that we saw in that opening round. Time for Power Picks presented by Tide. First one off the board was Marvin Harrison. Not really necessarily a huge surprise. Do you like the pick, Bucky, for Arizona?
I do, because the entire time of the process, I believe that he was like Larry Fitzgerald when Larry Fitzgerald arrived in Arizona. Gave them a professional at the number 1 receiver. Big-time playmaker, smooth, fluid, has the pedigree. Obviously, his dad is a Hall of Famer, and he brings that also to the table. Last 2 years at Ohio State, the numbers are identical whether he had a big-time quarterback or not. To me, that tells me he can be a number 1 receiver in this league, and it doesn't really matter who he has around him. This is a big-time talent, a guy that you can build an offense around. Kyler Murray should have a lot of fun throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr.
And then when I look at Rome Odunze at 9, I know we were loving up what we could see from him with Caleb Williams as we continue to see some footage here of Marvin Harrison. And no surprise, he usually finds his way into the end zone. But Lance, take me through well, you know what? Comment on Marvin. I'll get.
Well, I mean, it's quick on Marvin Harrison. I mean, Marvin Harrison gives you a chance to have the polish right off the jump. I mean, Arizona, Kyler Murray now has a new DeAndre Hopkins, a new guy who can win the ball, who has great not just ball skills but route acumen, and then Caleb Williams. It's all about the quarterback to wide receiver combination. Who's it going to be? You want to find that wide receiver 1. Honestly, I think Rome Odunze is stepping into a great spot because there's some other wide receivers there. Keenan Allen can help show him the ropes in terms of being a route runner. He has incredible ball skills. He understands how to get his body in position properly. He understands how to track and make adjustments. Once the ball goes up, it is deeply in his favor. And you know, when you have a player like that, ask Michael Penix with Jalen McMillan, Polk, McMillan, and Odunze over there in Washington. There are opportunities where he just threw the ball up and let him go make a play like right there, although that was a really good throw. Caleb Williams, it's going to help him from time to time to just be able to throw the jump ball when the rush is bearing down and you got a one-on-one outside or even in the slot and you say, let's let Odunze go make a play. It can be a quarterback's best friend. So I think Odunze is really going to be helped by having Keenan Allen there, and I think he's really going to help Caleb Williams because he's going to have a big ball-winning target that he can trust. And if you look at the wide receiving core at USC last year, some good players. Taj Washington's a good player. Sure. Brendan Rice, who just went, but they don't come anywhere close to what Rome Odunze is going to give.
Yeah, you know, heading into this draft, Bucky, there was some speculation that the San Francisco 49ers, who hadn't had a first-round pick, you know, had been a little bit of time here, might move from Brandon Ayuk. That hasn't happened just yet, but the pick in round number 1 might have signaled, hey, maybe that's around the corner. What do I need to know about Ricky Pearsall? Well,
I think Ricky Pearsall not necessarily signals that Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel are gone, but I think it's a reaction to what happened in the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs were able to lock up the San Francisco 49ers receivers in the Super Bowl, and Kyle Shanahan had to look at this and had to anticipate, or he's anticipating, other teams are going to try and take this blueprint and use it against us. So let me go and get another get-open specialist, someone who can win their one-on-one matchup, someone who's a clever and crafty route runner. Ricky Pearsall is that. So now I may have the opportunity to put Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall on the field with the Deebo Samuel to make life easy for Brock Purdy. They didn't get the separation that they wanted in the Super Bowl, but the only way that you can improve that either be great with the pen in terms of diagramming plays or get better players around them that can win those matchups. Ricky Pearsall is one of those players who can win the matchup.
Yeah, you know, I know we talked about J.J. McCarthy earlier in the show. They moved up one spot to go and get him. Minnesota was active. They moved up again and they drafted Dallas Turner. There was an offshoot of that because they moved and they switched with Jacksonville. At 23, the Jags still ended up getting maybe the guy that they wanted the entire time, arguably the 4th best wide receiver that was on the board.
Brian Thomas Jr. is super talented. To fall to 23, I mean, you know, I know Malik Neighbors is the dog of the two, and I get all that stuff. but this is the 10th best athlete I think that's ever come through the combine at the wide receiver position. I mean, he is a really exceptional three-level player. He's got the speed, he's got ball tracking, you see the change and adjustments. But I think what's important is to remember, I'm not going to run through the Xos and tell you what he can do is make their quarterback Trevor Lawrence a better player. You've invested so much in Trevor Lawrence, and yet I feel like you tried to give him this, you tried to give him that. Ridley was coming off a year where he hadn't played football for a year. You gave a bunch of money to Christian Kirk, but he's still a slot receiver. If you want to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence, and make no mistake, you're going to give him a great big bag, you want to at least justify it with better play, more consistent high-end play. And the best way to do that is let's go get some guys that can make some plays. And Brian Thomas Jr. put the ball in the paint a lot at LSU for Jaden Daniels.
17 touchdowns last year for Jaden Daniels. And bigger picture thing, because I'm close to the Jaguars, just imagine Brian Thomas on one side, Gabe Davis on the other side. They're on record in believing their two best playmakers are Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. When you put vertical guys on the outside of those slot receivers, slot playmakers, it now creates more space underneath. And for Trevor Lawrence, who was about to get the bag, you want to make sure you set him up for success to validate why you're going to pay him what you're paying him. Mm-hmm. This was a move to make sure that Trevor Lawrence is able to play at his best.
God, and I want to see Trevor Lawrence healthy as well, banged up in the second half of the year. The dude was like the walking wounded. I felt bad. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm thinking to myself, please don't play him. Make sure that he's healthy at the end of the year, make a run in the postseason. Obviously, that didn't happen. They did address that, though, with Mac Jones bringing him in. Meanwhile, the NFL draft continues to roll on. We are in round number 7. I'll let you guys eyeball this. Is there a name, a pick, or maybe even a player around the corner that hasn't been drafted? Anything standing out to you about this final frame?
Well, I do want to mention one of my favorite guys is, you see him, let's see, where is he? Cleveland Browns took him. There he is, Miles Harden. Played at South Dakota. I think they got a big steal here. He is a tackling machine. Rarely do you get away from his clutches. I understand that he didn't play at the biggest school, but I think he comes from Miami area, so he's a Miami kid with a lot of aggression in his football. You know that he's going to go get you. But the other thing and you'll see him right here, he'll go up and tackle you like he prays that you come his way. You know how there's some shortstops, Bucky, and third baseman? Man, I hope they don't hit the ball to me. I hope he didn't hit it to me. He hopes you run his way. Please run my way. Please run my way, because I want to step up there and jump in and make the tackle. To me, I'm moving him to safety. I understand he can play corner, but I see so much value for Miles Harden as a safety, and I think he is somebody who can transition to that position, become a consistent tackler and a good football player who will make a team and eventually be a much bigger piece than you ever expected as a 7th rounder.
Yeah.
Miles Cole, H-Town, putting it down. Texas Tech, defensive end, another big body that D'Amico Ryans gets to play with.
Yeah, I like that. By the way, you're playing third base or shortstop. You want the ball coming to you.
You should.
Yeah.
Unless you've had some errors.
Go to the other side. Go play second base. My arm started to die a little bit. I had to move over. I was so mad I didn't get much action on that side. This is the time of the year we start thinking about player comps. We're bringing you the best of those. Coming up next here on Draft Center, presented by Panini America. It has been a record-setting run at the 2024 NFL Draft. It is Draft Center. It's presented by Panini America. I mean, the fans in Detroit just delivering. Yeah, we got the flavor and all of the things that come with the pomp and circumstance, but we had records that were set, we had dramatic moments, and players that are living out lifelong dreams. You want to have success, right? Time for Rated Rookie Player. Comparisons presented by Panini America. All right, is there a player comp? You're asked about this, and I know when you're doing your write-ups, you do a ton of these.
I typically hate comps.
Most of the guys who sit in that chair do.
Everyone gets mad that you gave them this comp, and I'm going to give you a comp that no one's going to like anyway. They're not going to like this, and I'll admit it's kind of a lazy comp, if I'm being honest.
It is.
It's a lazy comp. Yep. But here we go. You see this? Who is this?
That's Tua.
Oh, it's Tua.
That's Tua.
Okay.
That's Tua. My comp is going to be another left-hander, Michael Penix.
Oh, my God.
Laziest comp in the game.
Is that only because of the
let
lefty?
me just say this. Let me say this. I think when you look at Michael Penix, he's got that quick release where he can fling it out there. That's not just the left-handed thing. He's got the quick release, and that's something to me that I think makes Tua a little different than some of the other quarterbacks out there. It's not the long wind-up. It's zoom. And I don't know what it is about these two, but when I kept watching him, when he gets through his progressions, now there's a little bit more windup, but if he needs to, he can expedite it. And that's what Tua could do. A lot of the RPO stuff, granted, he'll do RPO, bang. When he was at Alabama, Tua was throwing a lot of quick hitters and things like that. But Tua can explore the intermediate areas of the field. Penix has a much bigger arm, but I think the way that they get rid of the ball, the way they get the ball to the playmakers, very different types of playmakers at Alabama and at Miami now than what Penix had, different styles of receivers. But the one thing that stands out to me, besides both being left-handed, is that quick, sudden release where if pressure's on them, they can get rid of it quickly.
Yeah, he can get rid of it quickly. He can push the ball down the field. I've never seen anyone aggressively hunt the deep ball like Michael Penix. And not only aggressively do it, but do it in an efficient manner where he's not reckless or careless with the football. This dude is a big play machine. He attacks the ball, and he forces defenders to defend every blade of grass. It's going to be fun to watch him in Atlanta when he finally...
With the 227th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Miles Harden, defensive back, South Dakota. Go Browns!
Well, I do want to mention one of my favorite guys is, you see him, let's see, where is he? Cleveland Browns took him. There he is, Miles Harden. Played at South Dakota. I think they got a big steal here. He is a tackling machine. Rarely do you get away from his clutches. I understand that he didn't play at the biggest school, but I think he comes from Miami area, so he's a Miami kid with a lot of aggression in his football. You know that he's going to go get you. But the other thing and you'll see him right here, he'll go up and tackle you like he prays that you come his way. You know how there's some shortstops, Bucky, and third baseman? Man, I hope they don't hit the ball to me. I hope he didn't hit it to me. He hopes you run his way. Please run my way. Please run my way because I want to step up there and jump in and make the tackle. To me, I'm moving him to safety. I understand he can play corner, but I see so much value for Miles Harden as a safety, and I think he is somebody who can transition to that position, become a consistent tackler and a good football player who will make a team and eventually be a much bigger piece than you ever expected as a seventh rounder.
With the 228th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Nick Samak, center, Michigan State.
With the 229th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select MJ Devonshire, defensive back, Pittsburgh.
Oh, and I also want to thank Michigan for giving us a second JJ on our team. Thank you. Woo! With the 230th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Michael Juergens, center, Wake Forest. You like that? Skol!
With the 231st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Waheem Bell, tight end, Florida State. Woo!
With the 232nd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Levi Rodriguez, defensive tackle, Texas A&M Commerce.
With the 233rd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, America's team, Mexico's team, world's team, my Dallas Cowboys select Nathan Thomas, tackle, Louisiana Lafayette.
All right, let's get an offensive lineman here. Nate Thomas played left tackle, excellent size, 6'5", 332 pounds. This has been a sneaky offensive line factory there in Lafayette, Louisiana. Left tackle, had knee injury. You watch him, you see some power. He can really sit and anchor in pass protection. I thought the foot quickness, that was a challenge. That was a little bit of an issue with him going up against some more athletic defenders. But he can get you moved a little bit in the run game. And again, this is a place that's produced Robert Hunt. We've had
Kevin Dotson.
We've had
Max Mitchell.
We've had some guys come through there. So interesting selection here as they continue to add pieces up front to that offensive line.
With the 235th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Jonah Laul, defense tackle, Oklahoma.
With the 235th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Devon Vele, wide receiver, Utah.
So with the 236th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Miles Cole.
With the 237th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Matt Lee, center, Miami. With the 238th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Solomon Byrd, defensive end, USC. With the 239th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Josiah Ezerim, tackle, Eastern Kentucky.
With the 240th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Michael Barrett, linebacker, Michigan. Key!
Yeah, someone just didn't run as fast, Rich. If he'd have ran a little bit faster, he ran that 4.7 flat 40. But someone who was a stat stuffer in terms of the 3 sacks, the 3 forced fumbles, really quick hands, can play off blocks. Thought he played faster than that 40 time. Thought he could also cover running backs as well. This is again another Michigan player. They play downhill. I mean, they are so aggressive. I'm excited to see this scheme with the Chargers next year with Jesse Minter because it just feels like they're always playing forward, CD. They're always attacking.
Yeah, and one thing they're also going to do with that scheme is have some people up front that are going to control some things.
Shout out to the city of Detroit, one of the greatest cities in North America. Everybody's got to get here. This is one of the best. I'm from Canada, and I love coming here. I'm so happy the Miami Dolphins asked me to do this. With the 221st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Taj Washington, wide receiver, USC. Go Fins!
With the 242nd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select James Williams, linebacker, Miami. With the 243rd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Jawan Briggs, defensive tackle, Cincinnati. With the 244th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Justin Rogers, defensive tackle, Auburn.
Yeah, he's a phone booth player. You see him at 330 pounds. Not really much of a plan as a pass rusher, but man, he is physical against the run. As a pass rusher, more of that kind of slow, steady pocket push is what you're going to get from him. But it's a lot of dude now. 330 pounds, big hands, long arms.
Walking him, look at him. If he gets that leverage underneath,
that's how he plays.
Walks people back and just stays there at the line of scrimmage. And if you're going to come to him, he might be there to envelop you.
All right, so that wraps it up for yet another draft night at the Star.
With the 245th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select with a touchdown pass in Ford Field, Michael Pratt, quarterback
right.
They're trying to make Sean Clifford nervous.
Michael Pratt, deep ball accuracy. The comparison, you see it down there on the bottom. Look, Ryan Tannehill started a lot of games in this league, been a successful quarterback and had some good years. So to me, I like the way he throws the ball. Throws a beautiful deep ball, has that nice lofting touch down the field. There's times where his reset accuracy struggles. In other words, he gets moved off his spot, has to reset. That can leave him a little bit. This was the matchup against Caleb Williams in that duel in the bowl game after the 22 season, ended up leading that comeback, and they end up knocking off the Trojans. Charles, to me, this is a fun guy to develop late in the draft here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Rich talked before about what are you getting out of Michigan guys, and you're getting winners. Michael Pratt helped make Tulane a more than consistent winner, back-to-back AAC champions, and the Cotton Bowl against USC.
With the 246th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Devin Culp, tight end, Washington. With the 247th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Marcus Harris, defensive tackle, Auburn.
Let's start with Culp here, another Washington player that gets to hear their name called. If I'm not mistaken, that might be number 9. We'll double check that number in just a moment here. But we've got another tight end off the board. Anything pop besides putting up some pretty good numbers when you're playing with Michael Penix?
Sure. Why don't you go take a look at his 40 time at the combine? Tell me what you find.
A 4.47.
4.47 tight end. Now, let's be real. He's a big slot. He's not a tight end. What he is he's a guy with some size, but he's a big wide receiver who can really run. And we can call him tight end if you want to. He's a big slot. But you see right here, kind of getting after it against the Oregon Ducks there. And Culp was kind of intriguing to me when I watched him because, you know, the production's not great. He's not really going to block a whole lot for you. But what you do have is a player that can really get down the field from the slot. Now, this is an intriguing one for me. Marcus Harris is tough at the point of attack. He's a little undersized at 3 technique at 286 pounds. But apparently the Texans don't have a problem with it because they're going smaller and smaller inside because D'Amico Ryans wants to find guys who are tough to block inside. And usually that's with quickness. But Marcus Harris is unusually strong for his size. He can really play at the point of attack and swap paint with the guy across from him. He may not be the biggest guy, but big guys have a hard time moving him around because he can really anchor up. Some guys, Bucky, are just strong in the hips and you just have a hard time moving him. Aaron Donald was a guy like that who was just, he may have been smaller, but you just couldn't move him around.
Yeah, some of it is the balance, the power, the leverage. Being able to be a low leverage player, that makes it very, very difficult to move.
CJ Hansen, holy cross. Here we go. We're going to the state of Massachusetts. Great campus. Yeah.
Was that intentional? I like that. Holy cross.
Voice inflection came out.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were doing there.
I didn't do it on purpose. I wish I could take credit for it. We're at that point. Sometimes whatever's going to pop out is going to pop out.
CJ's a pretty good athlete. I thought he might go in the 6th round. He throws his punch with some good firmness. He has good eyes and hands to twitch and pass off the stunts that are out there. When you get the TE twist and the ET twist, he sees them well. He moves it well. He's technically sound in the run game. There's a lot of good football to the way he plays. CJ Hansen, I think, is going to get a look at not just guard but also center.
With the 249th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Ladarius Henderson, guard, Michigan.
Ladarius transferred over after playing at Arizona State, transferred over. You know, he beat out a more talented player in Trent Jones. Trent Jones, the player who really flashes on tape from time to time, a little bit inconsistent, a little bit immature. Ladarius Henderson, just kind of a pro's pro. Well, we'll find out if he's a pro's pro, but he was definitely a guy that Jim Harbaugh really liked. He showed up, went to work every day there on that right side. Is a decent athlete. I think he has some trouble in terms of pass protection and consistency. He's going to have some issues with players bull rushing him as well. But you know, anytime you play at Michigan, you've got the hands and the feet, and you do things the right way from a technique standpoint. I think it would have benefited him if he played longer at Michigan as opposed to Arizona State, where things were so turbulent. But he's got an outside shot here. He's playing for Bobby Slowick, and you know, we'll see if he can make that transition to right tackle in a zone scheme team.
With the 250th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Sanusi Kane, defensive back, Purdue.
Man, I wrote him up early in the process here. I got to go back to my notes to remember what I had on him. Sanusi Kane has, I do remember this, from a size standpoint, he's got good size. I think with Kane, the speed and explosiveness at the pro day are going to stand out. Quick lateral scrapes to mirror direction to run play, so he'll get down there in the box and make some things happen. Does a good job of keeping distance from blockers. He's going to be a box safe.
With the 251st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Tatum Bethune, linebacker, Florida State.
70 tackles for him, actually led this Seminole squad.
You know, his linebacker, my first line of my scouting report is his linebacker play won't make it on most teaching tape, but it doesn't take much time to figure out that he is a football player. And so that's ultimately what you want at this point. You may have some things that aren't neat and nice because we're in the 7th round, but he knows how to play ball.
With the 252nd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Jalen Harrell, defensive end, Michigan.
Jalen Harrell, pass rusher out of Michigan, not good against the run, very intriguing as a pass rusher. The problem you have right here is that he's not like against the run, he really has a hard time. You can push him around. But man, when you watch the pass rush stuff, he's got some really sick spin moves. He's got the inside spin. He's got an outside spin. He's got an ability to change directions quickly against scrambling quarterbacks. So it's really a tale of two cities here. When I watch the run tape, I think undrafted free agent, no chance of making the team. And then when I watch him rush the passer, I say, wait a minute now, that dog can hunt a little bit. So, you know, if you got that one skill, Bucky talked about it earlier, you got to have a skill late. You got to have something to hang your hat on, and his is the pass rush and the athleticism.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. It's interesting because this dude is super athletic. This dude, Michigan has produced a ton of defensive linemen in the last few years, and they all have had a little level of success. When I think about what Rand Carthon is attempting to do with this Tennessee Titans team, he's trying to really fortify the stable with pass rushers and defensive.
With the 253rd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver, Michigan.
Another Michigan man, and this time he goes to the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. So you see the size there and the speed, 6'2", almost 6'3", 212, runs a 4.44. Here's the thing. The route running is, a problem. He is not a great route runner, is just very inconsistent getting in and out of breaks. So what you have to ask him to do is run a lot of those overs, the go routes. You see it's kind of slow there, breaking down and getting into his breaks. So you can't ask him to do that. But let me tell you what he does really well. He is a contested catch player. He has the ability to get down the field with some speed and hit some big plays. And this guy is an absolute dog as a run blocker. You're probably not going to see it. I doubt we're going to in special teams. There's the block punt goes flying in there too. So if you give me a guy who's teams, I know that he's going to block in the run game. And he seeks out, like he sought out Ohio State, and he couldn't wait to go get into their cornerbacks. Like to him, that was a chance for him to impose his will and show he was the alpha.
With the 254th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select KT Livingston, tackle, Kansas State.
Maybe a tackle, maybe a guard. He was a left tackle over at Kansas State. Physical. On this tape, you're going to see him playing right next to BB. BB from Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. And so when you see those two guys on double teams, it is rough now. They are physical.
With the 255th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Kalen King, defensive back, Penn State.
So Kalen King had a little more hype before the draft process started, but then really struggled at the Senior Bowl. I thought he had a hard time covering some of the guys over there. Ran a 4.61 at the Combine, which
didn't help.
That doesn't help when you, in the draft process, when you run a 4.6 and you get done up at the combine from time to time, that's a little bit of a problem. But when you look at his body of work, you see a solid body of work. Last year he was third team all Big Ten player. This year he was a second 10 all Big Ten player as well. So, there's some pedigree stuff there in terms of playing in a good conference and making all conference teams, but speed is a problem. If you run a 4.6, it's going to drop you at least 1, maybe 2 rounds. Sometimes teams took him completely off the board.
With the 256th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Nick Gargiulo, guard, South Carolina.
Yeah, I like Nick. I gave him a 5th-round grade. I think he's a good football player. You see the size. He's 6'5 and a half, 318 pounds. Played center, can play guard. The athletic numbers are pretty good. 32.5-inch vertical is a good number for an offensive lineman. 28 bench press reps. I guess if you like an athletic, look, began his career as a left tackle at Yale before converting to center. I actually think that he's got a chance to be a make-it player. He's a former multi-positional starter at Yale, and he showed that he could jump into the SEC and be a solid contributor. So I think that when you look at the physical attributes, you look at the way he's built, the lean muscle mass, and then you look at the way he moves and changes directions. I'm frankly a little surprised that he didn't get drafted earlier, because I think he's a pretty good football player, and I think that he has a chance because he can play center or guard, because he's got the good physical traits and athletic ability. He'll have the flexibility to be a good positional backup at guard and center, at least for one contract and maybe beyond. He's a pretty good football player.
Thank you, Detroit. Thank you to all of the Detroit fans. You've been fantastic. But no fans in Detroit are irrelevant. You guys are all relevant. So, yeah. Thank you to Lucretia, Uncle Roland, Aunt Glo. All fans can root for the underdog. So with the final, but maybe not irrelevant pick, with the 257th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Jalen Key, a defensive back from Alabama. Good luck, Mr. Irrelevant. Let's go, Jets.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide came over from UAB and said, all right, I've been at one college here in Alabama, and let me go see if I can play at the other college. And Jalen Key at safety went in there and did a nice job. He did a nice job on tape. Thought he was going to be a late-round pick, 6th, 7th round. He had that ability. So right here, this is just about taking a player that you think can play on special teams if he's a safety and has the right kind of makeup for your team, the right type of mentality. That's what that is.